Hello and welcome to Matriarch. My guest today is Marlon West. He's father to Scarlet, a young woman who was abused by a rape gang operating in the Greater Manchester area when she was an adolescent and a teenager. This quite recent history. Scarlet's only 20 now, and she was abused by this gang between the age of 13 and 18. So the point that Marlon makes is quite right, is that this is all still happening. This isn't history. And he encountered many state failures in his efforts to protect his daughter, and is now campaigning. He and Scarlett are both now campaigning for a national inquiry. The extended version of this episode, as always, is available at louiseperry.substack.com, where you can also find everything else associated with the podcast, including the episode I recorded with Charlie Peters some time ago, which we spoke about at length during today's episode. Should we start by talking about Scarlett's early life? So where did she grow up?
So she grew up in Cheshire. Mm-hmm. When she was younger, we was quite financially well off. Mm-hmm. She was a great toddler. She was pretty advanced, actually, and I know a lot of parents say this, but she generally was. So 18 months old, she was walking and talking, and never shut up since. Possibly got that from me. She went to nursery. We didn't use a childminder because we wanted her, and I know people have got different opinions on this, we wanted her to be social, and that was the reason why we used a nursery. Mm-hmm. She was great, really great, hilarious. As she got older, she went to private school. Mm-hmm. And even as an infant or a junior, she was just very funny and inquisitive, had a large personality. Mm. She loved horses from the moment she could talk. We bought her dolls and, prams, the things what little girls want. She never bothered with them. She absolutely loved this rocking horse. And when she became about 4-year-old, where she could start having lessons, mm-hmm. we did. And she was completely obsessed with it. That's all she talked about, horses. That continued into her teenage years. A senior school, high school, she went to quite a Church of England school, and a good school, really good school. It wasn't local. I had to pay for the coach, and she really liked the school. Really liked it. She had lots of friends. The horses continued, and she went to pony club. I seemed to be constantly taking her to the stables for one reason or the other. Mm-hmm. As you do with kids, with lots of football, Scarlet, it was horses. And when she was about 12, I agreed to get her a lone horse for a couple of days a week. And she really engaged in that well. She was doing well at school, always academic, in the top sets, bright young girl. Because she was doing well at school, I then agreed to buy a horse, which was a financial sacrifice on a different level. The horse cost me more than my mortgage. Oh my goodness. Monthly. It crucified me. But my theory at the time was, I'm a single dad, on my own, with a daughter, and it kept her off the streets. Yeah. I didn't want hanging around on street corners, especially with a character, and she'll speak to anyone, and she'll be at the stables, there'll be other young girls there, and also adults. So I always knew she was safe. She would come home from, she wouldn't even come home from school, if I'm honest with you. She'd go straight to the stables. She'd get changed at the stables. Then I would pick her up after work, and then she'd look after her horse. Horse was called Jasper. Look after her horse and then come home. Then Weekends came, Saturday, Sunday, she was at the stables. So this went on for a couple of years, I guess. Again, as a single dad, it reassured me.
Yeah.
But I was very wrong. Very, very wrong. Because obviously it didn't turn out that way.
So at what age is Scarlett now?
She's 20 years old now.
And when did you first start getting concerned?
So I can tell you the actual date that there was, I guess, what I call critical incident. And that was Halloween 2018. She'd arranged with one of the friends from the stable to go trick-or-treating. Just her and the maids. And she went to, don't know how to describe this, an extremely expensive housing estate. Ricky Hatton lives on it, on this housing estate, to trick or treat, because her and a friend thought they'd get better sweets there than around where I live. So she arranged this, spoke to a friend's mum, and the mum said, well, I finished work late. I will collect them at 8 o'clock at the bus station. I've told them to get the bus down to the bus station. It's only a couple of stops. And then I'll pick them up and I'll drop her off at your house.
Were they 13? Have I got the maths right?
So they're 13, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're waiting at the bus station for a friend to pick her up, a friend's mum to collect her at about 10 to 8. And there was about 17 youths in the bus station. So her and a friend moved to the other side of the bus station because they were coming in their direction. And this gang realised they crossed over. And they chased her and her friend. Scarlet went one way, her friend went the other. They chased Scarlet. They beat her up. They put a knife to her throat. And they tried setting her on fire.
Oh my goodness.
Now, luckily, that night, it was raining quite heavy. And she had, I don't know what to call it, like a coat with fur around the hood.
Yeah.
But all the hood and the fur had been burnt. She's lucky she didn't go up in flames. And it was only the rain what actually put the fire out.
And this is 8 o'clock at night, did you say? So it's not late?
Yeah. It's not that late. It was dark because it was winter.
Yeah.
But it's not that late. And a friend brought home, she'd already rang the police, the friend's mother. She'd rang the police, and the police was on the way to my house. The gang ranged from the age of about 12 to 18. They were renowned in the area. Everyone was aware of them because of the damage they've been doing. Buses have been taking different bus routes because they've been throwing bricks at buses, passing buses, damaging shops. So there was known to the police, this gang.
Where was this? Sorry, which bus station was this?
It was Hyde bus station.
Okay.
So just slightly off the subject, I'll tell you this. So Hyde is where Dr. Shipman was the GP.
Oh, right, okay.
And he was my GP.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, and he did kill my auntie, Marlon West, one of the first 12. Oh,
my goodness.
Yeah. And we also had the Moors murders, Brady and Mara Hindley. It is a nice place.
So, yeah. I should probably say for non-British listeners, Harold Shipman was a GP serial killer who... I can't remember, I'm sorry, how many people he murdered. Most prolific serial killer in British history, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's part of the country he's seen a lot, but it's also very lovely.
It is. So, yeah. It's a mill town, but we're right on the borders, and I mean really on the borders. It actually comes under Cheshire, but we're on the borders of Derbyshire and Lancashire. It's very scenic. I can go, I don't know, 800 yards down the road on its fields and hills. It is quite nice.
I did a mini break with my mum to Derbyshire not that long ago. It's lovely.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, went to National Trust houses and stuff. Yeah.
So no, it is a nice area. We just have some unfortunate history.
So you were saying about this attack on Scarlet and her friend.
So yeah, so this attack happened. The police came to my property. Cutting the story short, they did arrest, I think, 4 individuals. They didn't go to court, but they did go to youth offenders.
Okay.
But when I previously said this was a critical incident, it really was, because within a few days, Scarlett's personality drastically changed.
Yeah.
This was the point of grooming, really, because what happened very quickly, and it escalated extremely quick, was she started hanging around with this gang.
The gang that attacked her.
The gang what attacked her.
Wow.
She will say now the reason she did that was because she was frightened of them and she didn't want to get bullied.
She was trying to get in with them.
She was trying to get in with them because what happened after that, because she'd been to the police, they started targeting her, turning up at the stables. They found out who she was. She didn't know him, but they found out who she was, and they were turning up at the stables. She didn't want her horse being harmed. She didn't want any trouble on the stables. So she knocked around with them to keep them away from the stables. Lots of things happened then after the Christmas where she turned 14. I wasn't aware really of this at the time. I found out later.
So you didn't know that she was hanging out with these boys?
No. It weren't just boys. There was girls as well. It was quite a large gang. And although it's okay where I live, obviously every area has certain areas what are not okay, and that's where they were knocking about. It'd be the last place I would have wanted her. But there was behaviour changes with her, be more private, secretive, more aggressive, which was really out of character. When I say aggressive, I'd ask her to do something, and then she'd scream and shout at me. At the time, I put a lot of that down to her age.
Yeah.
As it escalated, I started picking up on things. So, started getting phone calls home from the stables. She's not been up. She's not cleaned Jasper out. I was going up in the middle of the night doing it. She was coming home late. And then it got to the point where she'd go missing at weekends. She was still engaging in school, but she'd go missing at weekends. She'd be really, really aggressive towards me. So I'll give you an example. It was a school night. I was just getting ready for bed. It was about 10:30. And she came downstairs full of makeup, really dressed up. So I said, "Where are you going?" And I was laughing. Now, to be fair, she does this occasionally. I think a lot of girls will put loads of makeup on and then wash it off,
Just for fun.
And she said, "I'm going out." I said, "You won't be going out at this time. I can promise you." And her attitude was, "I'll do what I want to do." And I stood in front of the front door and I said, "You need to go and have a shower, get your pyjamas on and go to bed." And she'd never done this before and she started kicking me. So with, not to go into too much detail, but with my professional background, I'm trained to restrain, and I have regular updates for that. And I did restrain her. I didn't hurt her, didn't bruise her, but I did restrain her to protect myself, but also more importantly to protect her. She told the school teacher the next day, and they did a safeguarding. I was in work and I was suspended.
Really?
I had to return home to speak to the police. To be fair, on this occasion, the police were pretty good. They asked me what had happened. I told them what had happened. They said, yeah, that's what Scarlet said. They got a female police officer to check if I'd bruised her or any kind of physical harm, and there wasn't. But social services wouldn't take that. And they did about a 9-week investigation, which resulted in me being off work. And then returned and said there was nothing, I'd not done anything wrong. However, and they told me this in front of Scarlet and said, your dad isn't allowed to restrain you anymore. If your dad restrains you, you need to contact the police. What happened from that was she started going missing on a massive scale because I couldn't keep her in the property.
Yeah.
And physical violence towards me.
What did social services have to say about her wanting to go out at that time of night? Were they curious
They
about
didn't
where she
even
was
ask
going?
her. They didn't even ask her. Which is something I brought up. Scarlett's a child, and I strongly believe that children need direction and boundaries.
Yeah.
But that resulted in me being depowered, powerless.
Yeah.
I believe that conversation put Scarlett in so much danger. Well, we know that now. Because, and what they say is, if she goes out, you need to report it to the police. I was ringing the police nearly every night. And then she'll be coming in at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning intoxicated. She's 14, which then resulted in permanent exclusion from school.
And she'd been doing well in school up until then.
Really well. She was in all the top stats.
Yeah.
Never had any phone calls to say she'd not done her homework. But then I started getting lots and lots of phone calls about her behaviour and her attitude. And that was the grooming what started at that point.
Was it the same sort of thing at school that was happening at home? So being aggressive and resistant and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like on one occasion, another time I just stood in front of the door and said, no, you're not going out. And she kicked me that hard. She broke 3 of my fingers.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get any support from social services, and it wasn't without asking. Then she became a problem to the police because she was going down as a missing kid. So I felt they blame me for that. And they say, you know, you need to control your kid. And it wasn't as easy as that. I remember one night, and in some ways I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time. And I'm sat watching telly, and someone dropped in front of the window, and it literally was bedding sheet tied together in a knot, like the Great Prison Escape. And I saw her come past the window and
like
leg it.
Looney Tunes, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she tied all the bedding together.
Yeah. And of course, you've then been told by social services that you can't use any kind of force to keep her at home.
No force at all. No.
Yeah.
And I've got the police saying to me, and they're right what the police were saying, you can do this under common law. You know, if it went to court, you're keeping your daughter safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm getting it from both ends there.
Yeah. One of the things that's been mentioned about, do you prefer to say grooming gangs or rape gangs? What do you think is the best term?
I don't know.
There isn't really a good one, is there?
If I'm honest with you, a swap and change. It's like, you know, a lot of them are saying British Pakistan gangs. I don't say that neither. What I do say, and I get criticised for this, is Muslim raping gangs. And the reason why I say Muslim is it wasn't just British Pakistan heritage who were raping them and raping her. It was also Albanians and Bengalis, but the common denominator within that is the Muslim. I don't know what the correct are, but then I don't want to offend Muslims.
Yeah.
So I really don't know.
Yeah. I've written about this, the fact that the word that's come to be most closely associated with this phenomenon is Rotherham, right? Is the place
Yeah.
Rotherham,
Yeah.
which is of course not where Scarlet was abused, but I almost think that that's because we don't know what else to say, and so it's just that word is the best we've got, really, because it's the most famous place.
Yeah.
But it's almost because it's right. You're right. Like
I
there's just
don't like the
isn't
term
really.
grooming either, you know.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And I don't know, you know, I've done my own research into this, and there's different terminologies, but then it's a mouthful.
Yeah, yeah. Should we just say gangs
We'll
for
say
ease
gangs.
of gangs?
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that is being commented on by some people in looking at this, why this was allowed to go on for so long, why it's still going on, why there hasn't been a proper reckoning, why the state failed, is one of the problems is the Gillick competency,
Yeah.
which is, this is all very
Yeah.
specific to British law, so I don't want to bore overseas listeners, but we basically give young people a fairly remarkable degree of autonomy over all sorts of things. And this has also come up in relation to kids who've been wanting to transition as well, as a very different sort of case. But
Yeah.
there's been similar issues with, what do you do when you have a 14-year-old who's saying, I absolutely, absolutely want to do X, Y, Z, and her parents say no. The state has a tendency to side with the child.
Definitely. And that's definitely what happened in my case with Scarlet. And the way they did that meant that I guess Scarlet had more control than I did.
Yeah.
And, I work with capacity, mental health capacity. And I believe it should be similar to that with children, because
Yeah.
a lot of it is common sense.
Yeah, which they just don't have. I know I've told you this off air, and some listeners will know that I used to work with teenage victims of sexual violence.
Yeah.
And the main thing that I really took away from that is just how unworldly these girls can be. They can sometimes give you the impression that they're inconsistent.
Yeah.
But sometimes they just don't understand the most basic things about the world, and they're so gullible, and it's sort of lovely and innocent, but also terrifying. And when you've
It
got
makes them vulnerable.
they really, really does. Yeah, they've just got no idea. And so to say, oh, well, they're young women who need to make their own decisions. I just think, have you spoken to them? Yeah. I remember being a 14-year-old girl. I didn't know anything.
I think our times were different, certainly mine, because I was brought up in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was definitely, in my day, and I can only go off my experience, there was definitely a massive innocence until you was possibly about 17.
So you said that there was a point where you were calling the police every night to tell them that she was missing. How did the police handle that?
Initially, the first few times, really good. The more I did it, the worse their attitudes got. So they would do things like, and this is something I do campaign about. So you ring the police to report your daughter missing. So they'd say to me, ring 101.
Which is the non-emergency number.
Non-emergency
for
number.
those who don't know. Yep.
That can take from an hour to 2 hours to get through. Right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to do that. I'd ring 999 and I'd get told off for that. But I'd still do it every night. Then I'll spend 20 minutes on the phone, give a description. I got into the role because I knew what the assessment was. I'd done it that many times. I just, what she was wearing, last time she was seen. Then what would happen is 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, the police would come banging on my door to take the same information again. Now, originally they didn't do that. They do it before midnight. I believe they was doing that. I know there was to stop me reporting a missing.
Because they'd wake you up, and it would be
because they wake me up, and they'd be not all of them, but a lot of them would be quite smarmy. Oh, was you asleep, sir? Oh, that's a shame, sir. Really sarcastic.
Right.
So I was ringing them all the time. Then I pushed for a strategy meeting with Great Manchester Police and the Missing from Home and social services.
Mm-hmm.
By this point, she was, and I had to put a complaint in to get this, under child in need.
Okay. What
Which
does
is
that
a
mean to...
lower part of a child protection.
Okay.
So I went to this meeting with these two officers from the Missing from Home. I had one officer, an older officer, and I mean screaming at me, telling me to stop reporting my daughter missing. The police can't continue to deal with this. Basically threatened me that my job could be at risk. So I left that meeting extremely angry.
Yeah.
As I was getting into my car on the social services car park, two social workers who were in the meeting, one of them being a team manager, ran across to me and said, "Don't take any notice of the police. You carry on reporting a missing."
Right.
My response to that was, "Obviously, I will do. But why didn't you support me? You just sat there and never said anything." "Oh, well, you know what these police are like. They can be really aggressive." I just didn't get any support.
Why do you think the police responded so badly? They felt like you were wasting their time. Was that the...
Yeah, because what was happening in Manchester, and I do hear very similar stories with other survivors across the country. So if a child goes missing, or an adult, it goes under the Missing from Home team. Now, the Missing from Home team only work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, because children don't go missing at weekends or late at night. So what happens then? That goes to response police officers who are busy, with, I don't know, fights in the street, pubs, thefts, they're the response police.
Yeah.
But then they've got to prioritise, because it's a child, to drop all that and then come and see me. And I get that. I understand that. That must be really, really frustrating for them. One copper said to me, "We're looking for a lady who's got dementia and gone missing, and it's just been called through now. She's just been found dead in the canal while I'm looking for your daughter."
It is one of the crucial jobs that police do, finding missing people.
Yeah, but it goes to the response team. It's not...
Yeah.
But there is a specialised team, but they only work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just sort of shows how the under-resourcing
Of police force.
Yeah, because I guess this is all happening post-austerity, where police numbers have been cut quite heavily. And so,
social service.
Yeah, but it's no
then you've
excuse
got a
for
duty
people
of
being...
care.
That's the thing. Were they managing to find her?
So there's lots and lots of stories around this, but I think the prioritising one is. So what I do is I go driving around. Every time she goes missing, I would go driving around at night looking for her.
Yeah.
So, and I go banging on doors, and I mean banging on doors. So one night, I was banging on one of her, I'll just say this as it is, dodgy friends that she got to know through the gang.
Yeah.
And I was banging on her house door at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I wasn't polite. And I told the parents to get the daughter up and tell me where Scarlet was. Because by this point, she'd been missing about a week.
Wow.
At this point, the police weren't returning my phone calls. She's 14-year-old. I am devastated. I was really angry. I'm not a short person. And possibly a bit intimidating. And the girl did come downstairs and she told me where she was. So I drove to this property. I saw Scarlet through the window. I was kicking a door. And just to point out, this property was in Derbyshire, which isn't particularly that far from there. And it was literally 4 doors down from Glossop police station.
Wow.
Right. I couldn't get into the property. I went to the police station. So my daughter's in this property. She'd been missing a week. They said because she's a Tameside resident, we cannot get involved.
What, because it's a different force area?
Derbyshire.
Okay.
You need to ring Tameside Police.
Because they're thinking of it as a missing person case, whereas you're thinking of it as, why is my daughter in this property with a bunch of adult men?
Well, I was saying kidnapped, because that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So, rang Tameside Police. This is, possibly about 1 o'clock in the morning in winter. It's freezing. And they said, we'll be there in 10 minutes. I sat there till 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody turned up in the cold. I could see men coming and going from the back of the property.
Yeah.
This happened for about 3 or 4 nights on the run. Police never came. I'd sit there till 4 o'clock in the morning. Then the missing from home officer, the same officer what was shouting at me, telling me to stop reporting the missing, and I still have these, text me saying your daughter's safe. So it was a white young female adult who groomed her. I won't say her name, but your friend is safe with blah blah blah, which is a groomer.
Right.
She's 14. She's not been to school. She's 14-year-old. Then I text social services and the missing from home officer saying, I want you to implement a CORN. A CORN is a child abduction warning notice, and remove her from the property. And I still have the text. Social services text me back, the manager, saying, we cannot implement that. That needs to be the police. The police text me back, said, we can't implement that. It needs to be social services. What I do know is both of them could have done it individually. And they never did. They left her in that property. At that point is when I was screaming and shouting at social services saying, you need to put her in care now. You need to do a full child protection order and put her in care now. I cannot keep her safe. And I had to make such a stink about it to get her removed from the property and put into care. It was, I've said this before on interviews, it's the hardest thing I have ever done. To put your own child in care is not an easy decision.
What were you hoping that would achieve? What was the goal?
Well, one is to keep her safe. I knew by then, I knew she was being groomed. I think initially I was probably in denial a little bit initially, because again, I've dealt with this professionally. So I know the signs. Intoxication, having money on her, going missing. All the red flags were there. And to put her in care meant getting away from this adult female and the groomers. That's all I wanted to do at that point.
In terms of her going somewhere else, like a different part of the country, or just removing her from the area?
No, I wanted her removing out of Great Manchester, which did happen.
Yeah, right.
But it was so difficult. This is in COVID as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you should have reported her for breaking lockdown, then they might have done something about it. Was the hope that if she was in care, that they would be more capable of keeping her at home and knowing where she was, and basically they'd have more power to restrain her?
I was a bit naive, if I'm honest with you. I was really hoping that she'd go into care, she'd get a load of therapy, and then she'll come back home to me, safe, and she'll be the Scarlet that went to the stables and I've known all my life.
Yeah.
because I didn't know her anymore.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
So they did take her into care, but they didn't remove her from Greater Manchester, is that right?
Yeah, no, they removed her from Greater Manchester. She
Oh, they
was
did.
moved to Lincoln.
Okay.
So she was put in a care home in Lincoln, and within 2 weeks of being in that care home, she was sexually assaulted.
But who by?
By two much older girls who were 18.
And they were in the home as well?
Yeah, there's about 5 of them in there. Scarlet had gone for a bath, and they got in the bathroom. I won't go into details, but really sexually assaulted her. The concerning bit is she was at one-to-one care, so that meant one member of staff with her at all time. Obviously, the staff wasn't there. The staff couldn't get into the bathroom because the girls had locked the door behind. Scarlett still speaks about that to this day. She mentioned it today, funny enough, when I was speaking to her.
Were you in communication with her during this period?
I was. They have something called cooling off period. So when they first go into care, you can't speak to them for 2 weeks.
Okay.
After the 2 week, yeah, I was. They moved her from that care home. I reported it to Ofsted as well. They did nothing about it. I put complaints in and spoke to the social worker. And the social worker said, your daughter's a liar. That has not happened to her. I said, well, if my daughter's a liar, why have they sent a copy of the incident report to me by email? And the staff are saying it did happen. I just felt social services constantly basically not being accountable, whatever. So they did move her. They moved her then to Snowdonia, where they'd done some background investigations on Scarlet. This time she went to 3-to-1 care. 3 members of staff to her.
Oh, wow.
Because her behaviour had really escalated.
Yeah.
She tried running away from the care home, so she went to a children's home. She was the only child there. That children's home didn't go very well. And the court guardian. So the court guardian's like an advocate for her, obviously via the courts. And the court guardian was not happy with Tameside Social Services. Just to point out, Tameside Social Services were in special measures at that time, and they still are. So she was moved then to Blackpool. So I had real concerns about them moving her to Blackpool. So possibly not a lot of people would know this. Have you heard of Charlene Downs?
I have.
So I knew about Charlene Downs.
Yeah.
Also, our family. I have 2 brothers and a sister who live in Blackpool. So I was quite aware of this, and I was quite aware of the history with child sexual exploitation in Blackpool. So I had real concerns, and I tried objecting to it. Social services were very critical to me in court because I was objecting to it. And I actually hold my hands up. She went to this care home, and it was in Lytham St Anne's, which is possibly the nicer end of Blackpool. This care home was amazing.
Oh.
It was really good. It was. She was still on. She was on 3-to-1 care again. She was the only one in the property. It was a gorgeous property, which isn't like the other properties she went to, far from it. So one of the carers still has regular contact with Scarlet. She comes and sees her a lot. Scarlet goes up and occasionally stays with her. Now, she did that professionally when Scarlet left that placement and did it through social services. She had a really, really good positive impact on Scarlet. But what I would say is, while this is going on, once a child goes onto a full child protection, then court proceedings start. So you have to go to family courts. So, and I think this is really important, and it's another part of my campaigning. So the Children's Act does not accommodate for grooming, for child sexual exploitation, because it's that old. So for a child to go in care on a full child protection, there's certain elements you need: sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect. Social services put on the form for court emotional abuse and neglect from me as a father. This happens to so many parents.
Yeah.
I was so fortunate. The judge overruled it. A judge can overrule it, but this doesn't happen all the time. All the parents I speak to, this does not happen. And he made local authority change it to beyond parent control.
Right.
So I was fortunate because I would have lost my job. I do safeguarding for a living. I would have lost my job. I've spoke to parents who are school teachers or, social workers. One of them was a social worker, and this has happened to them, and they've got to court, and they have been blamed for neglect and emotional abuse. That has resulted in them losing their job.
So can I just to clarify?
Sorry, yes.
So you wanted her taken into care because she was being abused by people outside of the family.
Yeah.
But the Children's Act isn't really written to accommodate that kind of reasoning. And so they instead basically ticked a box to say, actually, no, there are problems within the family. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's extra familiar harm.
Yeah.
And interfamiliar harm. Interfamiliar harm is when a parent's not feeding the child, or they're hitting a child, or a family member's sexually abusing them.
Mm-hmm.
That is what the Children's Act is set up for, not for extra familiar harm. Without outside the home.
Yeah.
It is really wrong.
I think this is also an important point in terms of you will get people sometimes who criticise campaigners on Muslim rape gangs and say that actually, if you look at the statistics, kids are much more likely to be abused within the family, that most of the perpetrators are white, etc., etc. And the response to that is, sure, yes. I mean, like most social services obviously are dealing with most social services cases are going to be looking like that as intrafamilial harm.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here is a very, very specific style of abuse.
Yes.
Which really is disproportionately committed by Muslim men. Yes. And it's like qualitatively really different from this other style.
Very different.
Yeah. And as you're saying, a legislation isn't really set up to deal with it or even to understand it.
Yeah. So, what upsets me, it upset me at the time because I couldn't believe it. And I had a really good barrister. And reflecting my experience with that judge, he was really good. Again, I didn't think that at the time.
Yeah.
But as I've learned this and spoke to so many families that have been destroyed, not just by grooming gangs, but also by the legal system, I do feel really strongly about it. It's just so wrong.
Yeah. It sounds like from your experience, the quality of care homes is really patchy, right? So despite Blackpool being famously...
I even got onto that bit. That is massive.
Yeah. So despite Blackpool being...
It gets worse.
Famously associated with Muslim rape gangs and where Charlene Downs was murdered, well, we assume she was murdered, her body was never found. That care home was good. And then you have terrible experiences in other parts of the country.
Yeah, it was very, very good. Very good.
I think one of the things that comes clear from your story and from so many other survivors is just the the multitude of different types of failing. So there is we know, like, the top line thing is that a big part of the reason that this wasn't properly investigated and stopped, and it still hasn't been, is because of the worrying about community cohesion. This is a big
Yeah.
thing, the racism
Yeah.
allegations. But as well as that, there are just so many other ways in which the state just doesn't serve these victims well at all, and their families.
Like, as far as why, like, again, with Scarlet, the police and local authority, as far as I'm concerned, have done some major cover-ups, and they have evidence for that. But as far as local authority, as a council, I think it comes from the councillors.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe, and this seems to be a common theme around the countries where you've got a high population of ethnic communities,
Mm-hmm.
and Labour-run councils.
Yeah.
I do believe it's not just about being politically correct. It's also to do with votes.
Yeah, and corruption.
And corruption. Yeah. And the more I see, and the more people I speak to, a case today which was in a local paper with Daisy Blackmore. I don't know if you read that.
Is this the young councillor in Peterborough?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's been, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's basically been forced out of her role because she was saying that there ought to be CCTV in taxis to protect particularly young women who are taking these taxis, and because the taxi drivers are disproportionately likely to be Muslim, this has brought just so much grief down on her head.
She's been bullied, yeah.
And it's partly because also she's Jewish, or her mum's Jewish, is that right? Yeah.
Her mum's Jewish, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I agree. I think that should be national. I think taxis, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Asian, whoever's driving them taxis and has the licence, there should be a CCTV in there.
Yeah, but this dysfunction is very deep in the Labour Party.
Very much.
Yeah. And I think sometimes as well, I mean, I'm sure there is just so much. This is why the national inquiry is necessary, because there's just so much that we don't know. But we have these sort of disturbing glimpses sometimes of what must have been going on, like a case I'm thinking of, I forget which part of the country this was, where a victim showed up at the police station to report finally what had been happening to her. And while sitting there in the waiting room, got a text from her abuser saying, "I know you're in the police station. I know what you're going to do." And threatening her family.
I think that were Rotherham, actually.
Yeah, that sounds right. And clearly what had happened, the only way that could have happened is because someone from within the police station had directly communicated with the abuser and knew exactly what was going on.
Like, even Scarlet, and I don't know if you're aware of this, so something that was done last year by Andy Burnham, the mayor of Manchester, was the Baird inquiry. So the Baird inquiry was done by Dame Vera Baird. Mm-hmm. It was an independent inquiry into the treatment of women by the police force. So I do have another issue with this. So they said it was an investigation into women and girls. It wasn't women and girls. It was women and a child. That child was Scarlet.
Right.
On one occasion when she'd been missing for 2 weeks and systematically raped, and the police found her. They took her back to the police station and strip searched her because they thought she possibly might have an e-cig.
An e-cig?
An e-cig. And she would be at risk with an e-cig. It was rubbish. It was just...
Because they were taking her into custody, was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was rubbish. And I don't for 1 minute think it was the police doing it for sexual gratification, which some people have said that. Not for 1 minute. What that was about was humiliating her and punishing her for going missing, to try and stop her going missing, because they said, you carry on going missing, we'll do this every time. So again, the treatment of these kids, because that's what they are.
Yeah. But they've been so consistently regarded by authorities as, at best, just an annoyance, and
Yeah.
at worst, criminals themselves.
Yeah. So Scarlett's been arrested and then bailed for intent to supply Class A drugs because on one occasion, and this was in Rochdale, only 2 years ago,
Yeah.
where they found her via a phone, pinging a phone. She was found in a property which was an Airbnb property with Muslim men. She'd been missing for 2-3 weeks. So they raided the property and they found lots of Class A drugs, heroin.
Yeah.
So, which belonged to the groomers. Scarlet was arrested for the intent to supply Class A drugs. She was 17, even though she's on something called an NRM, so a National Referral Mechanism, which basically is a Home Office register of people who are trafficked.
Yeah.
It didn't make any difference. However, fortunately, they did bail her and she was never charged. But I think that was more to do with me.
Yeah. But they're showing up in this house with this young girl who's a child. Well, I suppose
Yeah,
she's above the age of sexual consent, but she's legally a child.
that gets a bit complex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And she's on this register,
yeah,
and they don't apparently think to treat her as a vulnerable person or as a victim.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the NRM says that's what should happen.
Yeah. This is such a common story, right? I mean, we don't know what numbers really we're dealing with. It's somewhere between. I mean,
We don't know. Some people are
yeah,
saying hundreds of thousands, and
yeah.
then some people are saying 20,000. We don't actually know.
Charlie Peters, who we both know and who's been
Yeah,
on this
yeah,
podcast before, I think he's basically the leading authority on this at the moment, and he thinks it's tens of thousands minimum.
yeah. We don't know. So Charlie brought some figures out yesterday. Don't get me wrong. I think they were really, really good. But even that is a snapshot because they've got that information from when men have actually been arrested.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's that many
Yeah.
who haven't. So
Yeah.
Scarlet was raped by over, it's an estimate, by over 60 Muslim men. And she was groomed by a white female and 5 other Muslim men. Not one of them have been arrested. Not even investigated. So we had the documentary out last week. The police, for probably the last month, have opened the inquiry again. What I didn't know, and I've only found this out recently, when Scarlet was being groomed and trafficked around the country, I don't use Snapchat, but by all accounts, Snapchat has GPS on it, and it tells you the location. She was taking pictures of the groomers and the different rapists around the country. So it has the GPS coordinates on it and a picture of the men. So she has this information. She's passed it all over to the police and other things. A day before the documentary came out, they've told her that they won't be continuing the investigation, but they will be using the information as intelligence.
Right.
Which isn't good because what they were telling her 2 weeks ago is that they were going to put her in protective custody.
How did she end up coming back? Because she's now. She is doing better now, right? I mean, this is recent history.
She's doing a lot better now, but she still has regular meltdowns.
Yeah.
She still has nightmares most nights.
I bet.
I do get phone calls at least once or twice a week in the middle of the night of her in tears because of nightmares.
Yeah.
and she's no wallflower. She doesn't cry often.
Yeah.
She lives around the corner from me.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a leaving care flat. That was her choice, to become more independent. I'm not positive that was a good thing because she isolates herself, because we're still living in the area where all the groomers are.
Yeah.
And she's terrified because of the media she's done to be seen. So if she goes anywhere, myself or my mum, her grandma, takes her. She does need to get out of the area. I think that would make a massive difference. She's still waiting for therapy. She's been waiting for therapy since she was 14. There was a 70-page psychology assessment done saying that she needs therapy and she needs something called DBT to regulate her emotions. It's special therapy, and also something called EMDR, which is for trauma. She's still waiting for that.
I'm not surprised. It was like that in my day as well.
Yeah.
Incredibly long waiting lists.
Yeah, she'll never get it.
And you mentioned that the men who abused her, none of them have been convicted of anything.
Not one of them's been convicted. The nearest they've got was, so there was one occasion, not that long ago, a couple of years ago, where she'd gone to meet the female groomer again. She's not seen her for a while. And she contacted her and said, I'm staying in a hotel tonight in the local area. Fell out with my boyfriend. Why don't we have a girly night in? So she went to the hotel. She got her intoxicated. And 3 Muslim men turned up. And on this occasion, this is interesting, on this occasion, she ran away from the room because these 3 Muslim men were my age.
Right.
Whereas historically, they've always been in their 30s.
Okay.
It's so complex, grooming. She's, her words were, they're as old as my dad. It did get reported to the police. The police did get the CCTV from the hotel. And one of them was a prominent businessman in the area. And they gave 3 calls out, child abduction warning notices. That was it. Nothing. Even though they got the CCTV.
How much of this do you think is to do with the cultural sensitivity point, and how much of it is just like good old-fashioned corruption? Or is it both?
Do you know, I don't like going down the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I like to see evidence. However, that being said, the more I delve into this and the more I delve into Scarlett's case, I record everything. And I've started going through it all again. I do think there's a massive cover-up. It's only recently, and I mean recently, that social services are accepting she's been groomed. So even through all the court system and going into care homes, that was seen as a life choice.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a big cover-up. There's a big cover-up. One of them as well, and this is everywhere, about not upsetting ethnic communities. And also, as I previously said, I do think this has a lot to do with votes as well.
Yeah.
Depending on what party's running that council, there seems to be a clear difference.
Yeah. I don't think that's a conspiratorial, really. I think that's just maths. You've got some really senior Labour people who have razor-thin margins, and they're under threat from some of the pro-Gaza parties that have emerged in recent years, and they're really worried about losing Muslim votes, And
Yeah.
they're also worried about, if there were serious inquiries, what would come out about the behaviour of these Labour councils.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tameside have 3 MPs: Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, and Andrew Gwynn. Andrew Gwynn has been suspended from the Labour Party. He's currently independent for a WhatsApp group what was leaked on his comments he was saying about old people and children.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So we don't have a massive support of MPs. However, I would say, and I've met with Jonathan Reynolds numerous times. He's a nice guy. He is a nice guy, but he will support his party first.
Yeah.
He's one of the terms I use is vote over justice for children.
The episode is not over. There is another maybe 30 minutes of content, but it is behind a paywall. If you would like access to that content, if you would like to show support for the show, paid subscriptions are what keep it on the road. Allow me to pay my producers, put food on the table, all that important stuff. The extended version of the podcast is available at my Substack, louiseperry.substack.com. That's where you can also find, as I say every week, bonus episodes, extended episodes, the MMM chat community, all of this. Please sign up for a paid subscription. It makes such an enormous difference to my ability to keep producing the podcast and grow it even bigger, produce more episodes, all that good stuff. There are other ways that you can show your support for the show as well. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can like us on YouTube. You can tell your friends and family how much you like the show. If you find it valuable, all of these things make an enormous difference to our ability to keep making it. Thank you so much.